Hey guys, welcome to Growth Point, and we are with Q, and like always, I'm joined by David Vaderman.
Thank you.
How you doing, man?
Fantastic, wonderful, beautiful.
Fantastic, wonderful, beautiful, and I can add one more word, awesome. So guys, we have a show for you today. Like always, we touch the topics that you don't want to be touched, but we leave you thinking. And I believe that once we are done today, you'll be able to start thinking in the direction that we ought to think in as a nation. And I want you to stay until the end of this show, because David and I will give our verdict as to who is winning the elections. Hopefully.
Sure. I didn't sign up for
You didn't
that.
see that coming. Yeah, so guys, we are talking about some of the problems that are facing our nation of South Africa, and specifically in the areas of corruption and how we deal with it. Before we actually speak about how we deal with it, David, we just need to talk about what it is. What is corruption, David?
Sure. There's a lot of fancy words for corruption. I suppose at the end of the day, for me, corruption is when you do stuff that really, first of all, you shouldn't be doing, and secondly, is not in line with the whole concept of do unto others the way you want them to do to you. Because corruption really is when you step out of your lane and do things that take stuff away from people that didn't have an equal opportunity to do that.
Wow. I actually like that, because if you ask a child, and that explanation levels it up. So, are we a corrupt state?
Well, define state. Are we talking about the people, or are we talking about the politicians?
I believe the people are the state.
See, and that's the thing, Q. We blame the state for corruption. But let's make it as simple as possible. The state really consists of everybody in it, you think about it.
Yeah.
And the politicians are people that have access to certain things, certain information, and certain power. Because the politicians aren't all power, you misunderstand.
Yes.
So for every person, whether they're sitting in politics or outside of politics, they both need to have a certain mindset to get involved in corruption. Because both of them are doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
Okay? The corruption really, if you think about it, is criminal.
Yeah.
So you have a person that has a business of manufacturing t-shirts. And then you've got a politician that needs to, or that can have access to somebody else making something somewhere, doesn't matter. And then these guys start colluding. So as soon as you bring them together, the state, it's both of them. So it's not politicians that are corrupt. They have access to things. And then they offer it to these things, but they don't offer it to everybody.
Yes.
And then they start colluding. And then, for example, they make it more expensive. So you sell me your t-shirt at 10 Rand, but I'm going to unsell it at 200 Rand. And then I'll share 50 of that with you. So is it the state? No, it's everybody that's involved in it. So we must stop blaming politicians, but we must hold them accountable.
I like that.
There's a difference between blaming and holding accountable. Blaming, we can all blame. And South Africans, we like to blame. We blame everything and everyone.
Yes.
But we don't hold accountable.
Wow.
And accountable just says, what you're doing is wrong. Stop it. But then there's another level to it. What now?
Okay. Wow. You just answered my next question, because I was going to ask, why is it that there's a propensity to always attribute corruption to politicians? Because right now, if you ask any normal guy in the street and say, what do you think about corruption? The first entity that comes into their mind is government. Why is that?
Because government has the access. So think about it. When you have something like BEE, which has its good sides and its bad sides.
Yeah.
One of the bad sides about it is you've got a certain group of people that have, let's call it, exclusive access. And then they make this access available to a limited number of people. What should happen is they should say, okay, we need to buy a t-shirt. Everybody can now tender for this. But they don't. They claim that everybody can tender, but then they've colluded with a few guys here in Inagres to say, if you can do this, then once payment happens, then at the back here, we'll settle with you again. So you and I, as legitimate, successful business makers or business people in making t-shirts, don't get the same access.
Okay.
So remember, the politicians hold the key to who government will buy from. And that's why we blame them, because they give that key only to certain people with kickbacks.
Wow, I love that. So in essence, corruption actually starts with the individual.
Yes.
So when we start speaking about these aspects of corruption, before we go to the government level, because I believe that we cannot solve the problem at the same level it was created, we need to go deeper and look at ourselves.
Absolutely. It's like stealing. Why does somebody steal? There's always going to be a reason for people doing what they do or what they don't do. Why does somebody decide to murder another human being? It's a human decision.
Yeah.
Why does somebody decide to steal? Now we can argue that, okay, but there's a difference between stealing because you're hungry and stealing because you're a criminal. Now, it's quick to say that stealing is criminal.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I will challenge and say, if I'm hungry, Q, I will steal. The problem comes in when I'm taking your bread from your table and you still have bread left, as opposed to saying, I'm coming in and I'm killing you to take your bread. That's a difference for me. So there's kind of like, you've got to understand the circumstances around it. Now I know I'm going to get slated or possibly slated for saying that, because crime is crime and all of those things. But we have to take it into context as well. So with the politicians, again, it's the human being that's the problem.
Yeah.
So you can have great people doing bad things.
Yes.
But you can also have bad people do great things.
Yeah.
And by bad, I mean, let's talk about criminal corruption, stealing. So it's the human that sees an opportunity. So there's a politician that says, but hey man, there's an opportunity here for me to get something.
Yeah.
I can make more money out of this, or I can get something, a car, or whatever the case is. So then I approach another human being and I say, listen, Q, what if we wheel and deal like this? Then I'll make sure you get this. You give me this at the back, I'll pass that on to you. That's corruption. So it starts with a human being. Again, we're repeating what we said earlier, is that the politician just has the key. That's it. But it's still the human being. They just happen to be in a position.
Okay. Wow. So I'm hearing two variables here. One out of necessity and the other out of greed.
Yeah.
Because there is the more, I want to make more. But making more may not necessarily mean that the other person has to go low.
Well, think about it like this. We have people in government or in companies, doesn't matter. We have people that are involved in bribery, corruption, doesn't matter what you call it, but they're taking stuff from people. But think about it like this. When I come to UQ and I take something from you, and you have a wife and 2 kids that you must feed, who am I taking from?
You're taking from my kids.
I'm taking from your kids.
Yes.
I'm taking from your wife. I'm taking from their future.
That's it.
So the people that currently are involved in corruption, the people that are, let's call it crime syndicate bosses, are taking from their own people. They are stealing and robbing their own people. And what I mean by that is our fellow South Africans. That's what I mean. When I steal from you, I'm not stealing from you, Keith. I'm stealing from your family. I'm stealing from South Africa as a whole. When I'm a criminal, I'm not putting back into society. I'm just taking. And here's the thing, I take it for me. And you know, criminal syndicates work very simple. I have power. How do I exercise that power? Well, I just kill you. It's simple. It's almost like the movies.
Yeah.
If you stand against me, I'm going to kill you, which means the next person falls in line.
Yeah.
So the next person falls in line, and I pay that person to do that, because nobody's going to do it for free. So I'll pay you. It's good business. But here's the thing: I'm never going to pay you as much as you potentially can earn on your own when we don't have criminal activity.
Yes.
Because where we don't have criminal activity, many more people benefit.
Yeah.
As opposed to where you have criminal activity and only a handful benefit. But the problem with criminal activity, corruption and all of those things, it's the people that have the power that get the biggest portion of the cake. The people at the bottom, they get pittance.
Yeah.
It's just enough to keep them coming back.
Mhm.
It's almost like creating an addiction.
Wow.
I just give you enough so you keep on coming back.
Yeah.
Come back.
Wow.
Come back.
Wow. That's so profound, David. So at the heart of corruption, what I'm hearing you say is that there is a deep-seated greed.
Yes.
So we're talking about greedy people
Yeah.
who are unable to say, I've had enough.
Well, we're also talking about greedy people that are selfish.
Mhm.
Because there's a question about when is enough enough.
Yeah.
You know, Elon Musk, when will he ever have enough? It's the wrong question.
Yeah.
It's about what do we do with what we have?
Uh-huh.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Because if I just gather,
Mhm.
I can't get upset when people come and steal from me.
Mhm.
Because I'm not sharing.
Mhm.
And I don't mean sharing in terms of I've worked hard and I'm just going to give away.
Yeah.
We're not talking about
Yeah.
Nobody wants.
Yes.
It's a psychological, it's been proven.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to be given
Mhm.
an allowance. They want to earn stuff. All of
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
We want to earn things because it leads to a much greater thing. Now that's also where part of the problem starts for us in South Africa and globally.
Mhm.
Before we came online, we spoke about this. It's not
Yeah.
only a South African thing.
Mhm.
So we have a challenge where, if you think about where South Africa comes from, let's just focus on South Africa.
Mhm.
Many years ago, we sent black people away from where they were living.
Mhm.
One to States, whatever the case might be. And maybe chronologically I'm getting this wrong, but follow the story.
Mhm.
So we moved people away. And then we needed labor.
Mhm.
So mines, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not picking on mines, I'm using it as an example to tell a
yes.
story.
Yeah.
Then we went, let's go and get those men and bring them to come and work here.
Mhm.
And we let them all live together. So what did you do? The first thing you did is you broke up the family.
Yeah.
Because you took the father away from the family.
Mhm.
You took the provider away from the family. So now there's a couple of problems.
Mhm.
The second thing we did then, or the next thing we did is we said, okay, hang on. Let's bring the women as well to come and work. Not here,
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
So let's let them work in the suburbs, do something. So now I've got the mothers
Mhm.
and the women
Mhm.
working here.
Mhm.
I've got the fathers and the husbands
Mhm.
and the sons
Mhm.
working here,
Mhm.
and I have the kids over there.
Mhm.
Now that family is broken.
Yeah.
Now those kids are raised like that.
Mhm.
So you've broken things.
Yeah.
You know me, it takes a village to raise a child. There's
Yeah.
enough evidence of that.
Yeah.
We can't argue
True.
that, and whoever wants to argue that must
Mhm.
never come and do that with me.
Yeah.
So it takes a village to raise a child. Now that child is impoverished.
Yeah.
Because also, we come from I'm going to say we come from an era of extreme, discrimination.
Mhm.
But we cannot only blame
Yeah.
apartheid and discrimination.
Yeah.
We cannot only do
Yeah.
that. Because what I'm explaining here is also present in many other places and in many other situations and conditions.
Mhm.
But the point is, now that child grows up,
Mhm.
then what happens is we get corrupt people.
Yeah.
So the person that's really suffering
Mhm.
from the corruptness is that kid.
Mhm.
And to a degree the parents as well.
Mhm.
But it's that kid, because that kid's future is broken.
Mhm.
Because as a crime syndicate guy here, I'm taking from that kid.
Mhm.
So that kid's opportunity to go to school,
Mhm.
where's the money from?
Mhm.
And.
Mhm.
Now we have a situation in a country like South Africa where that's how that kid was raised.
Yeah.
So when he grew up, he saw, and you said we speak about things that other people don't.
Mhm.
I've got a black kid and a white kid.
Yeah.
We also have poor white people, and we also have rich black people.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, because we can get involved in numbers,
Mhm.
the thing is we can argue about the past, it's not going to change the future.
True.
So that kid sits over there.
Mhm.
So there's a black kid and a white kid.
Mhm.
And they both grow up.
Mhm.
And he's under those circumstances, and this white kid is under these circumstances. So I've got the black kid and I've got the white kid.
Yeah.
They grow up. And nothing's changed in their circumstances.
Mhm. Mhm.
Except for this black kid has gotten worse.
Yeah.
Because now he's got no guarantee of a job. Well, we shouldn't talk it. But the likelihood,
Yeah.
I heard a stat, I heard something on Wednesday evening,
Mhm.
and I have enough reason to believe it, that when the statement was made, I think the statement was made about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
the statement was made that the chances of a 19-year-old black person
Mhm.
in South Africa to find a job in his lifetime
Mhm.
is 50%.
Wow.
Now think about that. It means that a young man of age 90 has 50% chance to never in his lifetime find a job.
Wow, that's shocking.
Now what do you think is going to happen to this boy? He's going to have to stay alive.
Yeah.
I will get involved in criminal activity, that's what it is. And everybody watching this will. When it comes to survival, we will do what we need to do.
That's
It's
it.
survival of the fittest, it's not that. It's survival of survival.
That's it.
I need to stay alive.
Yeah.
So now what do you think is going to happen to this boy? Put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Now we have that situation today. But now we have it. Back then it looked, and it was, I had black and I had white and there was a difference. Today the world has changed drastically in South Africa.
Yeah.
But if you're that boy, or you're the next generation, or the next generation, you're also going to look and go, black still the same, white still the same. It must be a white problem. Now, who's in charge here at the top? And not in charge, who's had ample opportunity
Yes.
to influence things? Because
Yes.
making a change is different.
That's
It's
it.
different. So there are a whole lot of factors here at the top as well, of which politicians are just one. Because what about the corrupt? And there are private businesses involved in corruption.
That's it.
Private businesses. So it's not a black-white issue, it's a human being issue. Unfortunately, when it comes to survival, politicians know that I've got 5 years. In those 5 years, I need to do something. And then towards the end of that period, I need to do something again. And you start seeing Kentucky fly, and you see T-shirts fly. Because this young boy,
Yeah.
I need to get to this young boy.
Yeah.
I need to convince him that it's okay for you to be addicted
Yes.
to what you are experiencing at the moment.
That's it.
That's
Wow.
it.
Wow.
So, and we know any addiction, usually, if it carries on, will kill the person.
That's true.
But the person selling the addiction, they just get richer.
Yeah.
So we have a real situation where we're looking at things and we're going, but when this person from this political party or from that organization or this company says that, it looks right, it sounds right. And you can't blame them, because here's the problem. Who educates them? Is the crime syndicate going to educate this person?
Definitely not.
Is the corrupt business person or the corrupt government official going to educate this person? They're just enriching themselves. So your earlier point is, sadly in South Africa, because of various situations, and again, let me remind us, it's not only South Africa that is this, but we're talking
definitely.
about our beautiful country
That's
and the
it.
future of ourselves and our
That's it.
place. The problem starts with human beings, not white, not black, not Portuguese, Indian. It starts with human beings. That's the problem.
Wow.
And we have a country where people don't vote. Again, we're voting on the 29th of May.
Yeah.
How many people are going to vote? How many people? The same gentleman, and allow me to share this cue, it just comes back to the challenges we have. The same gentleman that we listened to on Wednesday evening. There's a black person living in, let's pick on Soweto. For the last 7 days, they had no electricity and no water. On day 7, it's the election. Now we expect that person to get to their voting station, wherever that station is. And this person used this terminology. The cost of voting is expensive to that individual.
Yeah.
Because now, that individual has to get to their voting post. But they had no electricity and no water for the last 6 days, because today is the 7th day.
Yeah.
So they also don't have a job, so
Yeah.
they don't have money to get transport to get them there. So now they must walk.
Yeah.
But if they walk there, think about age, think about the condition of the road, think about criminal entities, all of those kind of things. So the cost to get my signature on that piece of paper is higher than yours, for example. You and I will, on voting day, we get into our car, probably on the way there buy a takeaway coffee, go and stand in the queue, chat to the people around us, safe environment, drink our coffee, draw our vote, go, and that's life. The majority of South Africans don't vote like that.
No. No.
They don't vote like that.
No.
So millions of people will not vote, not because they say, we've given up, because it's just too expensive to get to the freaking voting post.
That's it.
So where does that start? People. Why are these people still in this condition? You and I chatted about this before. We have a situation in South Africa, and again I'm reminding us all that we're talking about the stuff that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And let's also just stop here. All of us here at the moment, we love this country.
We do.
That's why
We do.
I've traveled a little bit, not much, but I've traveled a little bit to know this is the best place in the world.
It is.
It's got the best people, the
Yeah.
best weather, the best
you
This is
say
the
it.
best. So
Yeah.
when we talk, it's not to be negative about this country.
Yeah, yeah.
It's to take it to even better levels.
That's it. That's it.
And dare I say to the level that it can potentially be.
True.
So we're not negative. We're also not blaming the politicians or
No.
anybody. We're just saying, what do we do as human beings, individually?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
You were talking about how expensive it is to actually go vote. And one of those things that I just wanted to also dovetail from that point is how, as much as you've raised the point that the platforms are not the same, the conditions are not the same, yet
Yeah.
we all expected to vote. But one of the things that I've also seen as a people, as we're looking forward to these elections, we seem to be myopic in a way. We've got a short memory syndrome.
Yeah.
What will happen is, just past we had Africa Cup of Nations, then we had the World Cup coming. Most areas there were no electricity. But during the competition, electricity never went. Immediately after that, electricity went.
So you've just reminded me of what I was going to say.
Mhm.
And it dovetails beautifully with this.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to hear certain things. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we want to hear, remember I sketched the story about 50 years ago, you had this black boy or girl growing up, and you had this white, let's say black kids growing up, white kids growing up, and it looked a certain way.
Yeah.
And for many blacks, they lived where there wasn't a tar road.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing was, for many of those people, even that gravel road didn't have a pothole in it. And the white suburb had a tar road, no pothole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the difference was very big
Mm-hmm.
in terms of maybe a shack versus a brick house. But there were certain things that worked.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to, I mean, our schooling system, as bad as it was at the time, now in hindsight, was some of the best schooling in the world for both.
Mm-hmm.
So now what happened over time is these people moved.
Mhm.
So now let's say, for example, you had two black kids
Mm-hmm.
and one stayed under these conditions, but the next guy moved into a so-called white suburb.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid went to the white suburb because there's an expectation that it's going to be better.
Mhm.
Bigger house, safer, tar road, you
Yeah.
know, better access to electricity and water and those kind of. But what we've seen over the last 30 years is that this tar road
Mm-hmm.
got a pothole
Yeah.
and wasn't fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got the black kid coming from an area where the road, the school, the hospital, the police station, those kind of things were right. So you had the black kids and the white kids living in two different areas. They both went to school, but they got a very similar education.
Mhm.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm talking about the education itself, not going back to Afrikaans. I'm not talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yet, this kid wanted to get out of this.
Uh-huh.
This kid also wanted to get out.
Uh-huh.
So they moved, this guy, it was probably easier,
Mm-hmm.
because you went from a white suburb to a white suburb, maybe a bigger house or whatever, or they just stayed there.
Yeah.
But this didn't really change. This
Mhm.
changed dramatically for the person
Yeah.
on that side. Because now I'm out of a shack and I'm
Mhm.
moving to a house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of a gravel road, I'm moving to a tar road.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at what's happened over the last 30 years, this black kid moved to this house
Mhm.
in a white suburb.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't even be speaking about white black, but into a white suburb.
Yeah.
But now the tar road
Mm-hmm.
has a pothole,
Mm.
and then a second,
Mm.
and then a third. So now the conditions here are becoming to look a lot more like here.
Yeah.
Now whose fault is that?
Mm-hmm.
So now I've worked my backside off to get out and away from this, give my kids a better life.
Mm.
But slowly but surely, it seems that I'm sliding back here.
Yeah.
But now now it's happening to everybody.
Yeah.
Because now we both live in a
Mm.
white suburb, nice house, nice picket fence, and all of us are now experiencing, now we together experience things that are not working.
Yes.
Or they're going backwards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
These guys are also going backwards
Mhm.
now. So now, when I'm this kid that grew up and I look at black, white,
Uh-huh.
because that's what a lot of people want me to see,
Mm-hmm.
it looks the same.
Yeah.
The white kid's still better off. Yeah, though, these people are beginning to realize, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
But they say, they look, there's a possibility that they still say, yes, but it still didn't change anything for us. So it must still be a black-white thing.
Yeah.
Although we're both doing the same, experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, can you blame these people? Rhetorical question. Can you blame them? Because what I'm seeing, and then to make it worse, we've got this thing where this kid in South Africa, and now these kids as well, have a small chance of getting a job in the future. So my conditions, my circumstances might have changed.
Wow.
But they also didn't. Because even if I lived 20, 30, 40 years ago, I had electricity. I had access to these things.
Yes.
And it's changed.
Wow.
But now it's impacting everybody here. Here, it looks like it's only impacting the white person. So now we've got criminals, corrupt people, politicians. And what's the common denominator? People. Now we've got people in here seeing the gap. And they go, you see, it's a white person. Or you see, it's a black person. You see, blacks can't lift themselves up. Or you see, whites are still keeping us down here. And then those things start growing and festering. When all of these people, all they want is access, not for free, access to get a job. So that I can have the same access to buy a house, buy clothes, live in a safe environment. Where I live really is irrelevant. We had this discussion, poverty is not going to disappear in my lifestyle. But at least, when we have poverty, is that these people that have more now, I'll go this far, they must share with those that don't have. And the first way that we share is you pay your legal taxes. Because when you don't pay taxes, you are just as corrupt.
That's true.
Let's not beat around the bush. You can either steal or kill, or you can be a corrupt businessman or a corrupt politician, or you cannot pay your taxes. It's the same thing. It's a human being doing something that has a direct impact on other human beings. And by the way, when you don't pay tax, you steal from your own kids' future.
That's true.
You steal from that money being available to build the infrastructure that we're now seeing going to ground. So tax, corruption, thievery, it doesn't matter. It's a human being challenge. Which of course means, who are the human beings that you're going to vote for?
My goodness. Where to come to that spot? Where to come to that spot where we're like, who's voting for who? And I'm going to have to make you almost wait a little longer as we begin to unpack. We will continue to speak more. And we have established that it starts with us, and it should also end with us. We've also established, David, that it's a human thing, and we created the mess. We have to be part of the solution. But one thing that I've picked, and I've been putting my mind to it, is in our nation, we really don't have a racism problem. We have a greed problem. Then we have these people you were speaking about who are weaponizing now racism as a problem, because you now begin to point fingers to say these are the people that are at fault for your hunger, for your lack of education, for this and for that. So it's a talk for another time. But I just want to thank you, David, for your open mind. I want to thank you for just being passionate about this nation, about where we have been and where we are, but most importantly, how great and bright the future is. And
bright it is, Q.
Yes.
Bright it is.
Yes. So guys, this has been Growth Point. I believe we served the food very hot. Whether you eat it or not, it's really none of our business. We will see you next time. Stay tuned. Cheers.